welcome everyone to a business brunch with me, James White. I'm a sales trainer and mentor, and as someone you know is a member of the group and really keen on helping business owners get brilliant results. And absolute privilege for me to get my good friend and mentor and someone that I've learned and inspired by over the years on the conversation with me today, Mr. David Harris. And David is, as I say, someone I've known for a long time. And the concept we're going to talk about today is how to build an 8-figure business, because this man you're watching has built an 8-figure business just a number of years ago. We're going to share that journey, share the things that he's done to basically achieve success in business. And he's going to share some tips and tricks and how to become incredibly successful in business. Aren't you, Dave?
Well, maybe, hopefully, yes.
I'm sure you will, mate. So how are you? Okay, you good this morning?
Yeah, good, thank you, good.
Awesome stuff. So look, those that don't know you, just give a little bit of a potted history around, firstly, how we met and how you got to meet someone like me. You know, I'm joking, but how we met, but also how your business career, and just in a couple of seconds, and we'll talk about how the business you built and then you then sold a number of years ago and some of the key things you did for that. But just give a potted history of what you've done over the last sort of 20 years or so.
Yeah, okay, fine. So you and I met at Plymouth University between the years of 93 and 97. I think there's loads of stories there, but we won't go into those here, I don't think.
Definitely not.
No. I then left university and I ended up working in recruitment, actually, almost by accident. But I learned a hell of a, I didn't enjoy it, but I learned a hell of a lot of really valuable lessons, particularly around sales in that environment. Once I'd done that role, which was up in Birmingham, I moved down to Bristol. I got involved in an IT company as an account manager there. I then moved after 3 years there, I moved to another business based in Bath, again in IT, but focused on the defence and national security sectors. And that brought me to 2005 when I started thinking about starting my own company, which was a business called Purple Secure Systems. And I was lucky enough to find my co-founder at that time, a guy called Jez Williams, and we started Purple Secure Systems in May 2006. And to cut a very, very long story short, we grew that business over a 10-year period in the national security and defense domain, building software applications and systems integration in that market. And by the time I left in 2017, we had about 100 odd people involved in the business in one way, shape or form. So I left there once we sold it in 2016. I stayed on for about 18 months or so on an earn-out deal. And then once that was complete, I moved on from there. And since then, I've been doing a handful of different things. I've invested in small companies as a silent investor. I've been doing mentoring in around the Bristol domain for small companies and startups, which is great. I also worked up at UE as a mentor in residence on their entrepreneurs program. And I've more recently become involved in a business called One Big Circle as an investor, but also an exec chairman. So I do 2 days a week for them now. So my experience is broad across the kind of IT domain. I'm not a technologist per se, but I do understand technology businesses. And from a kind of from a CEOs and founders point of view, I understand what a vision looks like and what a strategy to deliver that vision also looks like. So yeah, that's my experience.
Yeah, you had a good. That's a really good potted history of what you've done. And it's been incredible to see your journey, and I've obviously shared part of that with you over the time. And it's been great to see you do it. And it's really interesting, isn't it? Because business owners will look at what you've done now and see, you've achieved the success you have, and people think success is easy, right? But it's not, is it? There's a lot of trials and tribulations and challenges that go into building a successful business that you can ultimately sell, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. Whenever I talk about the experience that I had with Purple Secure Systems, there's obviously lots of positive things that we did and lots of good things that we did right and correctly. But there were also lots of challenging times and very difficult things that came up during that period of time. And there were also, frankly, mistakes that we made as well. Thankfully, not too many. But for us, we evolved and learnt about those. And being a small business anyway, we could adapt quite quickly. And as a result, we did well. So yeah.
It's incredible when you think about the history you had, and we'll talk about sales in a bit, because I know you've got some incredible sales experiences and interesting stories like I have in terms of things you've done right and wrong. But just on that point around building a business and the vision, I know when we've talked before, and I remember, and here's a little thing, and I'll give a little story. Me and Dave were on a plane to Australia a number of years ago, and to go to a friend's wedding out there, and we were sitting having a couple of drinks in a nice part of the plane, and I was saying to him, "Are you sure there's enough business in this space?" And you were like, "Yeah, pretty sure." But I always used to admire the fact that you were really focused on your planning and creating that vision for the business and what you wanted to do initially, and that was a real passion for you, wasn't it? You used to you had 3 young kids, or a young kid and 2 more on the way, and you were really, your plan was really key, wasn't it? And your vision, and really working out what you wanted to achieve. And do you think business owners overlook some of that work now, and sort of look at the day-to-day stuff without taking time to step back?
Yeah, I think during that period of time, the one opportunity that this was just before we're starting Purple Secure Systems. So I'd had the opportunity to assess the market whilst working for somebody else, thankfully, which is great. And we had identified that there was this, opportunity in the market for a, niche systems and software expertise company in national security. And so we were very honed in on what that need was, and I was talking to as many people as we could about what that need what it looked like, what would satisfy that requirement, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, and this comes down to that, that niching, which is a really important part of any business, frankly, but particularly small startups and small businesses. So we defined that, we sat down and we wrote it in our business plan, but more importantly, we extrapolated it and wrote it in a vision document, and that vision document was 1 side of A4, and that was one of the things that really drove us. That was pretty much one of the first things that we did when we started the company, is we wrote that vision document, and that described exactly what we were going for and what it would look like over time. And we, it did evolve over time, that vision, and we rewrote it a little bit. It evolved in itself. But essentially, that provided that basis for us, for everybody in all the stakeholders in the business, particularly the employees, to keep and focused on. So that was a great thing. And we also wrote an ethos document, which was essentially the values of the company and how we would operate and how we would treat people. And that provided those foundations. So yeah, it was really important. And some businesses do miss that. So, I see companies in and around the areas within which I operate, and sometimes they are so driven by the different sorts of needs, they don't take that step back and describe it in very simple and layman's terms for the stakeholders that they're going to be involved. And that's really, really important in my view. So that's one of the things that I and other mentors should be helping small businesses often do. And if they do it, then they just improve their chances of being successful, in my opinion.
It's such a good point, because it gives you that focus, doesn't it? It's sort of like, I remember you talking to us before about when certain things and what you wanted. It's sort of like when you're not sure about something, you can go back to that vision, or you can go back to that focus and say, what was it we wanted to do? Is this in line with that? And if you're not careful sometimes, especially as you know, and I know from being in business, for a long time, especially you can get, business isn't easy. It's not a straight path, right? And sometimes you need that sort of focus to get you back to where you really want to be and what you want to achieve.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's very, very tempting as time goes by, in taking, looking at, there's an opportunity come up here, but it's not in line with our vision. Do we go for it? Investigating all sorts of different ways, and that can be hugely distracting to what that kind of core mission is. That doesn't mean to say you shouldn't change your core mission. If you decide that actually your vision isn't right and you're going to go in a different direction, that's another thing. But essentially, once you've got it written down and once you've got it defined, then that's what you're going to focus on for the next 3 months or 6 months or a year or whatever defined period you're going to have. So yes, it is important.
And one of the things that I know that I've always loved about the business is, that when you shared stories about things was about the team, and you always built this incredible dynamic of people. There'll be people watching this with bigger and smaller businesses, and as you say, you got up to I know when you were selling, you were 60, 70 people. How talk to people about some of the things that you were really good at doing that really made your team feel on side and committed to the cause for Purple, because that was you were really passionate about that, weren't you, and about making sure that team involvement was critical to success.
Yeah, so the time that we set up in 2006, things were really rosy market-wise. I think the Labour government that we were in at the time, and there was plenty of public funding for defence and national security and all sorts of other, government agencies that we were going to be working with. And then the 2008 financial crisis hit, and everything started drawing back. And at the time, it was really hairy. It was not a nice feeling, and thankfully we didn't have to make anybody redundant, but it was, there were cuts all over the place. But one of the things that did do is it enhanced resolve to drive our ethos even more down this. We are going to be the best at what we do. So we set that out right from the very beginning, because that's the way we were going to differentiate ourselves. And so it turned out to be that financial crisis actually kind of helped us in a strange kind of way, because we even more honed down on that, technical excellence. And for us, that was great because our customers really valued that. So when they engaged us, when our customers, new customers, big customers started engaging us, they said, okay, we don't really know these guys. Let's, try them on this little project here. And we do really well because we have this technical excellence in our business. And they very often then go, oh, that was excellent. We've got a problem over here. Can you help us with that? So not only was it great from a customer point of view, but from an employee point of view, the people that joined us loved it because they were continuously involved in really interesting, difficult technical problems. And as software engineers and systems engineers, that was a really good environment. And not only that, they were working alongside really good people. And there's nothing better really than working with other good people. So yeah, we managed to create this culture within our business, which was absolutely defined about high quality and delivery, and that served us really, really well.
And it was obviously you achieved the success you did, but you also did the little things as well. I remember, the little Freddos, right?
Yeah, we had also, we were really good at looking after the people that worked for us. So, we paid them well. We probably paid them a bit above market rate, but we weren't anywhere near the kind of top. There were certainly employers paying more money to their staff, but we really looked after them. So we engaged them in a way that we made sure that they were enjoying what they were doing. Did they need support of any kind? Did they need mentoring? Did they need training? Was their career on track? Did they enjoy the work environment? And yeah, we used to give, we used to share Freddos amongst all our employees when things were going well. We used to take them away. We were really communicative with them about what the company was doing. So yeah, we worked really hard at that, and that worked well.
And you invested, and I think it's fair to say, I remember at the time your staff turnover rates were tiny. You didn't used to lose many people in terms of the business because people bought into that vision and that element of feeling appreciated. And it's a really good. I always think it's a really good lesson for, we've come from a similar sort of ethos of, do unto others as you want to do to yourself, and you just want to treat people in the right way, don't you? And businesses that don't, unfortunately, get found out in this kind of climate as well.
Yeah, we had that. We worked really, really hard to have empathy for all the people that worked for us, and people moved on. There, no doubt, there were people that decided to go and do other things, and that was absolutely fine. There was no problem with it. But the vast majority enjoyed what they were doing, and very often, especially because we were in a small, growing environment, they were taking on new challenges all the time, and there were people that were getting promoted and taking on new responsibilities. So it was a good environment to be in.
And just on that point, there's a question about growing a business. And do you think that people, obviously, because if you want to grow a business and build an 8-figure business, you've got to have great people with you. Do you think people look for more of the challenge and the opportunity rather than just necessarily the paycheck? In your experience, what drives and inspires more people more off the time?
Yeah, so we were very, very focused on making sure that the right people joined our business. And again, we didn't always get it right, but the majority of the time that we did. And we were not looking for people who were interested in a big whopping salary and bonus. We were interested in people who wanted to take on difficult technical problems and engage with our customers in an enthusiastic and positive way, and wanted to be part of a growth journey. And if those values were part of them as an individual, they fitted the business really well. So that's what we were looking for, and it's quite difficult to measure at interview, because you can test people technically, and that's easy, but it's much more difficult to understand what someone's values are, and how that might work or not work within your organisation in the space of an hour and a half. You're using your instinct quite a lot, which is a good measure, but it doesn't always go right. But yeah, absolutely, that was really important. It did work for us.
Cool. And as you obviously, and we'll talk a little bit, I'm going to talk about sales a bit, because you've had some good experiences and bad experiences of selling. As nice, Dave, if you're lucky, if you're watching this, Dave might actually even show you about the 7-minute meeting he had, but about the power of qualifying your sales leads. Maybe you'll mention that one, I don't know, but no one else knows. But you obviously, bringing business in is a challenge, right? But it's the most important thing for businesses to do, isn't it? If you don't bring new business in and generate sales and generate activity, you simply can't grow and build the business to then sell and develop. It's critical, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I remember doing an economics A level and thinking about business in the very simple terms. And you have supply and you have demand, and that's it. It's just, a business is as simple as that in theory. So you've got the demand side, i.e., you've got customers, and you need to understand what those customers need, and you need to engage with them in the right way. And then hopefully you do some business with them, i.e., the supply side. You provide services or a product or something that fits with their need. So yeah, and I always worked traditionally on the kind of demand side in building business and sales and whatnot. As CEO, I had to take a step up and think about that life cycle in its entirety, and think about the supply side as well. But essentially, a business starts with customers and what they need, and how they are prepared to pay for what you have. And there's science behind that, but there's also an art which you teach very well. But it's really important that businesses get that right, and it's very easy to get wrong.
Okay, and we'll leave the 7-minute meeting to another time, actually. In which case, no, I'm joking.
If you want me to bring it, all right.
No, because that'll mean that there'll be stories back about me, so we'll move on quickly. But look, at the end of the day, the joke aside, we all make sales and business and growing a business is a challenge. But when you were getting to conscious of time, and today, and these sessions are quite short and sharp, but when you were getting to the stage when you were thinking of exiting the business and grow, and what were, for people that are watching this now going, that might have the aspirations to do what you did and to try and sell their business and to try and sort of get that choice to go and do their own thing, what were sort of some of the critical things that you think were really important in the process when you sold Purple?
Yeah, so I mean that's a good question actually, and it's worth noting that when Jez and I started the business up, we never had an aspiration to sell the business. I knew a lot of people that were starting out, and they had a 5-year vision and an exit strategy and all the kind of, Jez and I were very, look, all we're going to do is create a good business here. We just want to be a part of and running and managing and having responsibility for something of our own. And it just so happened that it ended up being a valuable company. So my view on this is, you just get the principles absolutely right. For us, everything was focused around making sure we had to make a profit. So now, even if that was a small amount, especially in the early days, we had to make a profit, and we would take that profit and we would reinvest it into the business. We would have that kind of high, really high level of technical excellence, which I mentioned before. That was one of the kind of values that we had. We were really focused on our people and making sure our people did the right thing and fitted in well and grew within the organization. And also we were in a market, we were in a position in a market that was actually a good place to be. It took us a few years to find what our niche was in that market. Now, we don't get me wrong, we grew in the first few years, but actually we realized 3 or 4 years in, actually, where that, where we really could specialize. And that's when the proper growth started. And that obviously coincided the point at which we were, by the time I think we got to 15 or 20 people, that was the point at which we had some market presence, and there were a few people in the market going, okay, we know you guys already. And so we started to get some, reputation and all that kind of stuff. And that's when the real growth, happens. So, getting through those first few years to 10, 15, 20 people is really hard yards. It's an entrepreneurial environment. Nobody knows you, that kind of stuff. And then after that, I wouldn't say it's simple at all. It's you have to think a bit more strategically about it, but you have a market position and you have some presence, and it's much easier to grow in. So by the time we got to, 10 years in, and we were bought out by a business called CACI, the things that they were interested in simply met the features of the company that we had, which is being in the national security domain, embedded working with these kind of clients, very well kind of managed from a infrastructure, from a contracts point of view. They did their due diligence on us, and they thought it was going to take 3 or 4 months, and it only took 2 in the end, because the company was so well organized, thanks to Jez, not me, actually. So there was all sorts of different traits about the company that made it attractive.
But that's a really good point you mentioned about being organised. You had everything in order. Your accounts are in order. Your books, your contracts are in order. Your staff employment contracts are in order. It's all these elements that make a critical factor, don't they? Towards, and I end up talking to a number of people that have completed and sold businesses, that if those things are, if there are weeds, if there's dirt in the weeds, as it were, then buyers will find it out and they'll try and knock you down for it. Whereas if all of that is done ready to be in a good position, it's a good business sense anyway. You just cover your bases, don't you?
Correct, yeah. And that, again, that's one of the things that I try and guide some of the businesses that I work with mentoring, in that, start with the end in mind. And if the end is indeed possibly a sale of some kind, but as you point out, it's good business practice in any case, get those fundamentals correct from the start, and it's much easier further down the line. So yeah, as I say, for me, I was lucky enough to have a business partner who was like fastidious about this kind of stuff, and he was brilliant because he made sure that everything was buttoned down tight and really good. But that needs to happen in a business in some way, shape, or form, whether it's you doing it or whether it's somebody else in the business doing it. It's worthwhile, that investment early on.
Reminds me, I've got to get my carrier bag of receipts out, actually.
Yeah.
Give it to my finance. Say, yeah, Kelly, there's 7,000 receipts over the last 4 years to deal with. No, I'm joking. More good shit. But things like monthly P&Ls and being able to profit and losses, and be able to look at your business and to see your budgets and your plans. A lot of businesses, I find, even though I'm in mentoring from a sales perspective, don't do that stuff. And it's good disciplines to get into, isn't it? To hold board meetings. You used to hold board meetings regularly where you'd review those numbers and see your trajectory and see what you're doing. And that structure does matter, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. From a management information point of view, to be able to just take that step back and review what the trend looks like. So, and to pick out, I say always, just a small handful, 3 or 4 different metrics alongside the other subjective things that are going on within the business. If you can look at those things regularly, monthly or quarterly, whatever it is, it doesn't matter that much. If you can do that, then it just gives you the ability to say, okay, are we on track? Do we need to make any changes in the way that we are operating strategically in our customer environment? And it gives you also the confidence, if you are doing well, to press on and take a handful of of risks that you might not otherwise. So it is important.
And I guess obviously, we'll cover off in another session if people, I know they will find it interesting. When you do make that sale process, it enables you to do other things like buying bottles of gin in Barcelona nightclubs and stuff like that. But anyway, we move on from those points. If you want to know about the Barcelona,
that's naughty, Jim. That was naughty of you.
I didn't say it. I didn't do a word. You were the one that. Anyway, but moving on.
You bullied me into it.
I did not put anybody. We'll move on. But the point is, if you want to know about the Barcelona nightclub incident with 2 bottles of gin, I don't even drink gin, so it wasn't me. Just to finish off, because it was a really great to hear your stories, and I know you're a busy man and got lots on. For business owners now that are looking to raise investment, I know you invest in companies. What are the key things you as an investor look for when you're looking to invest in a business? Because that's one of the topical things right now as well. There's lots of businesses who've got grand plans and things. What are the key sort of top 2 or 3 things that you as an investor think, right, if it doesn't have this, it's not going to work for me? And from your experience of the investor community, what's critical for people and investors like that?
So the very basics are obvious, and anybody will tell you about these. The market opportunity, the service or product that's going to resolve the problem that's out there, the finance that's required to do that. But for me anyway, the really important thing is actually the team, and particularly the leader of that team. So are they capable of not only addressing the market opportunity and moving it forward, but are they also able to build a group of people around them that can do that? And that's really the kind of tricky technology, but perhaps aren't so strong at making sure that they can get the team around them to take it, the really important step to becoming a medium or large organization. So that's the thing that I tend to look for, and I think a lot of investors are quite well tuned into as well. So yeah, very much about the kind of the leader or the founders and the way they operate.
Cool, brilliant stuff. Look, it's been great to chat through this stuff with you, and even though I've known you for a long time, I still pick up snippets and wisdom and ideas that I can use it, and it's great. And for anyone, just final question for you, watching this and they're thinking as a business owner, they're feeling a bit challenged, or they're feeling struggles, or feeling the worries of COVID and what's going on in the world right now and what's happening with them and their business. Any tips or advice for you that that you would give them to try and sort of get them in the right place to build the right future that they want?
Yeah, so I mean, inevitably, I mean, you're absolutely right. It's really difficult times for a lot of people. But I always try to think of it in these terms, that change brings about opportunity, and change is very scary for some people, and especially kind of when you're embedded in a certain way of thinking or doing or whatever it may be. But change brings about opportunity, and therefore, if you can think a little bit more laterally about how you might address something, then actually you may well come across something that could be a really big. So be motivated to do that and not scared by it. And things will also, in this environment, will settle down eventually. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Yeah, cool, makes sense. And my little tip for that is, not that I'm doing it at the moment, but get a jot pad with a nice glass of red wine, and just jot stuff down in the evening rather than watch crap telly. It's my personal view, but I sometimes will just jot things down in 2 glasses, 3 glasses, the ideas just come out and it suddenly goes mad from there. But as you know, I do like my red wine anyway. But
what about 10 glasses, Jim? That's probably
well, at that stage you can't read my writing, but that's the point. But no, it's all good. Look, absolute privilege, mate, and honour again, as normal, to have a chance to chat to you and for you to share your B4. It's got a fantastic business community that it works with, and these business brunches are all about sharing expertise and knowledge from people like yourself who've been there and done it and built great businesses. And as I say, final question for me then, how did it, that moment when it was all done, when the deal was done and you sold and you were there, because I remember you phoning me that afternoon, how did it actually feel? How did it feel?
A bit surreal, really. It had been going on for like a few months, the whole thing, and it was nice to get to that point. And Jez and I were it was kind of a late night at the solicitors down in firm in Reading, and it was probably at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, something like that. And I think we'd all had a bit enough, and we'd signed the documents, and that was it. And it was all a bit strange. And Jez and I went to celebrate at the is it Cheveley Services, the Burger King there, and we had a double whop with cheese each with fries. So that was the celebration meal. So yeah, it was all a little bit weird. And the next day was just get up in the morning and
go on with life. But there you go. Yeah. Celebrate you're selling an 8-figure business with a double whopper and cheese at Cheveley Services. There, you hit it first. That's all good. Look, mate, thank you. Absolute privilege and honour as normal to share your experience and knowledge. And I know it will benefit lots of people watching this. So look, really, really appreciate it. And as I say, thanks for being so generous with your time.
No problem. You're welcome.